Hey y'all, Doug with D&E in the Garage here. Let's talk about vacuum leaks today, alright? They're an annoyance. You got to deal with them on your vehicle, and they can be very difficult to find. What I want to do is show you the 3 ways that I know of to look for a vacuum leak at home without specialized equipment. The first way that I'm going to talk about is, it's ridiculous. I'm really just mentioning it so I can tell you not to try it. The second way is the way we've all done it. Everybody I know does it, but it's not really the best. The best is the third way. It's a little unexpected. But for a very limited investment, couple dollars, you can check for vacuum leaks at home on your own vehicle and find them every single time. Let's get into it.
Alrighty, now first and foremost, you always want to test your vacuum with a cool engine. Now this engine isn't completely cold, but it is in fact cool. You don't want to test any of these methods on an engine that is at temperature. It's dangerous for your engine and it's dangerous for you, and I'll explain a little bit more why in a minute.
Alright, the first test that I'm going to talk about to check for a vacuum leak is called the Soapy Water test. And basically what this test is using soapy water in the same way you would to check for a leak in a tire. Obviously, a leak in a tire, the air is coming out, and in a vacuum leak, the air is getting sucked in. But the same process is used. Get a spray bottle, fill it with soapy water, spray it along the vacuum lines in your engine bay. You will hear a difference in the idle when you find the leak. You may see the soapy water bubbling. You may hear a different type of hissing. There are 2 problems with this. The first one, I've personally never had any success with it. I find it to be the least effective of the 3 methods. That's not my big objection, though. My big objection comes when you start spraying water all over your engine bay, onto your electronic sensors, near your intake. It's just not a good practice, and I'm not going to demonstrate it for that reason. I don't think you should try it either. There are 2 other methods. They are both much safer and much more effective than the soapy water method. So if I were you, I would stay away from that method.
Alrighty, now that we have the ridiculous out of the way, let's get on to the first, and in my opinion, second best test. That's the test where you use some sort of flammable liquid, and you're going to spray it along the lines and listen for a change in idle. Now, growing up, my father always used starter fluid. I know a lot of people use carb and choke cleaner. In a pinch, you can even use brake parts cleaner. The first thing, before you dive into that, before you go anywhere near a running engine with any sort of flammable substance, you need a few things. Fire extinguisher. Get one. Make sure it is charged. Make sure it's current, all right? If there is a problem, you're going to want to have this. God forbid the worst should happen and you don't have one of these, all you can do is sit back and watch your vehicle burn to the ground. The next thing, get some safety gloves, get some safety glasses. Always. It's just common sense.
Alright, this is the test that everybody knows. This is the test your father's done. This is the test your grandfather does. This is the test your buddy does. This is where you take a flammable liquid. Starting fluid's the one I'm going to be using. Lots of people use carb and choke. Lots of people use brake clean. And you spray it on your vacuum lines and vacuum connectors, waiting to hear a change in the idle. The key here is that when you hear your engine rev up, you know you have found the connector or the line or the place where there is a vacuum leak. The best way to do this is spray it in an area, then wait a second. You need to give the starting fluid time to get to the cylinders so that you can actually hear that change. So you need to move slow and you need to be patient. So you see I spray a little bit, I wait a little bit, listen for it. Right now I'm actually replacing a line that fell off while I was testing. So like I said, I know where my vacuum leak is, so it wasn't a very hard test, but you can test an entire engine bay with this method and be successful. There are some issues though, and I'll list them now.
Alrighty, so what are the problems with this method? First of all, it is unsafe a little bit. What you're doing is you're taking a flammable liquid and you're spraying it directly onto a hot engine. This fluid, if you spray too much of it, could pool. If the engine is hot enough, it could flash and cause a fire. The other problem, the more realistic problem that I see with this, any of these fluids, starter fluid, brake clean, carb and choke cleaner, they dry out rubber. And all of your connections on your vacuum system are rubber. So what you're doing is you're taking this fluid and spraying it all over connections that may or may not be bad, but you're drying them out. Everything that you could use to test a vacuum system with this method is really nasty on rubber. Melt it, dry it out, make it crack. So you don't want to be spraying this around there. You also don't want to be spraying it in your engine bay because it can have an effect on paint. Now, modern paint is pretty resilient, but you still don't want to be spraying this stuff willy-nilly. It's also not good on your fan belt. It's just not the kind of stuff you want to be spraying all over the inside of your engine bay. It's not for that. You know what I mean? That's what brings me to the third method. All right, now the third method I'm going to show you is the method that most people think before they know any better is the most dangerous. All right, but it's actually the best. It's the safest and it's the most reliable. All right, and what it is the propane method. All right, now this crazy apparatus on here is what I use to get propane into the engine bay. It's the same idea as method number 2 when you're spraying carbon choke cleaner in. You're adding a more flammable substance, a more combustible substance, a differently combustible substance into the engine bay, and if there is a vacuum leak, that substance will be sucked in and it'll change the idle of the engine. The nice thing about propane, and the reason it's actually safer, is it's not a liquid. All right, so it disperses into the air. If it's not sucked into the engine, that propane disperses into the air. It doesn't have an opportunity to pool. It doesn't have an opportunity to sit on a hot exhaust manifold or interfere with anything else. And it also doesn't dry anything out. It doesn't dry out your rubber connections. It doesn't melt anything. It's not effective to paint. It's a much better method. It's a much safer method. And it's much easier in my opinion. What I can do is crack this open so that the propane is coming out of here, and I can feed this all the way down into my engine bay wherever I need it. You know, it's not like the spray method where I have to try to spray it down there and everything around it is also getting interfered with. This is the best method. Let me take a second to show you how to make this.
Alrighty, chances are you can make the apparatus you need for the propane testing method with stuff that's already in your toolbox. I'm using this hothead torch I have laying around. I'm sure a Burnzomatic torch head would work. Anything that you have that fits on a propane tank. I don't know if you can use a different gas other than propane. MAP gas might work. I don't think I would try anything like acetylene. That might be a bit too much. The hose is important because it allows you to be more precise with where you're putting the propane, and it allows you to have some distance between you and the propane in the engine bay. In case you were to come across something that was arcing and this propane were to combust, it's not going to explode in your hand, but it is going to be a fireball like you get on a grill that has too much lighter fluid. So you're going to want to be a little bit away. Find a hose that works for you. This old air hose had a hole in it anyway, so I cut a chunk off. It actually was such a nice fit, I was able to literally thread it onto my torch head, which was nice. I got a nice snug fit. There was no leaks. It's a very precise way to test. All I do then is I attach that onto the propane bottle, and I am ready to test. Alright, as I already said, I think the propane test is the most effective, and it is definitely the safest one you can use. The reason it's the most effective is that you can get that hose deep down into the engine bay, get it right up against the connector that you're trying to test, and have a very precise, accurate way of checking to see where your vacuum leak is. The way it works is you fish your hose down into the engine bay, right up against a connector or up against a line that you want to test. You crack open the propane valve, just a little bit. You just need a short blast, close it, and then listen for a change in the idle. All right, just like the spray test, you're going to hear it rev up, or you're not. If it doesn't rev up, if the engine idle doesn't change, you have not found your leak. If you hear this audible change in the idle, you know that you have found your leak. And you just keep doing that until you are successful.
Here's a quick disclaimer about both of these methods. All right, you're spraying a flammable substance, a liquid or a gas, into an engine bay. An engine bay where it's hot, an engine bay where there could be things arcing. Your spark plugs could be arcing, your injectors could be arcing, any of your sensors could potentially be arcing. That's why I say have the fire extinguisher. Do this in an open area. Maybe have somebody there to help you, all right? You need to know the risks before you go down this road. And as always, wear your safety glasses.
Alright y'all, thanks for watching. If you found this video at all entertaining, if you found it helpful, and I hope you did, by all means hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you've got any questions, leave me a comment. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.